But why should we address ethical implications of this technology? In other words, why should we care? I'll highlight just 4 reasons why we should care, among many reasons. The first is because more than half of the world is online. But if you look at the global asset, so forth, about designing innovation that considers access to beyond but it leads to. So that means responsible computing includes broadening participation that includes the full life cycle of innovation, right from data collection up to policy. So for instance, not having more women involved in data collection and less women in policy, we have to look at the full life cycle for inclusion. The third reason we should care is because many people are expected to have more conversations with virtual assistants than with their spouse. ChatGPT reached 1 million users in just 5 days. It took Netflix 3.5 years to get there. What that means is that artificial intelligence is with us. Even if you're not an active user, you live in society where the businesses are active users, or the people next to you are active users of AI. So responsible computing does not ignore the fact that AI is with us, and therefore we have to look at the societal, cultural, and data implications of this. The last reason I'll share why we should care is because virtual violence is violence, and online abuse is abuse. Technology has really facilitated online abuse. It's even changed the language that people use to facilitate online crime and abuse. So for instance, there are forums where people have changed how to use the language so that they can mask their understanding, and AI cannot pick up, for example, normal English. So different slang is being used to discuss, for instance, child pornography. So if you're building an AI detection to discuss or to detect whether child pornography is being discussed, then it cannot do that. Therefore, we have to be cognizant of the fact that technology is even inventing new languages that people use to facilitate online abuse and crime. So responsible computing is about understanding these changes, not just in local culture, but understanding these changes in how technology is evolving, language itself. And that means we cannot rely on only artificial intelligence. We have to bring in natural skills and human skills to build innovations that have trust and safety, and that consider both online and offline impact of technology. So these 4 examples are among many that we can cite where we should think ethically. But they bring us this opportunity that we can bring holistic thinking to how we build new technologies through capacity building, resource provision as well. And I'm going to share 2 examples of work that I'm involved in, both at Mozilla and as well as a startup that I founded, in how we are progressing responsible computing in the context of Kenya. At Mozilla, we believe that with great code comes great responsibility. In 2018, we started a challenge that started in the US that's called Responsible Computing Challenge, where all these partners came together to help universities to redesign their curriculum. Just last year, and for the first time in Africa, the program expanded to Kenya as the first African nation, but also the first country outside US that is implementing this challenge, which I now have the privilege to lead. And in Kenya, both USAID and Mozilla Foundation is funding this project. Why were we starting this? The target is competing faculty at Kenyan higher education. And the gap that we are addressing is the limited inclusion of ethical and innovation principles when it comes to building tech curricula. And the process that we followed to implement this is starting with a needs assessment to understand, will such a challenge thrive? Is it needed? And what are the gaps in curricula? Then that followed with a process of outreach to reach out to potential universities, and then applicants went through a 2-judging phase, and the selected applicants were funding was dispersed, and we are currently in execution. In the outreach stage, we received applications from 27 institutions, all public and private universities, as well as some innovation hubs. And this was spread throughout the country of Kenya, all the way from the coast to the western side. These 27 institutions went through a tour process where they submitted initial letters of intent that then followed with the final selection of full proposals. And from these 27 institutions, we selected 8 institutions that are the first cohort of Responsible Computing Challenge in Kenya. And these 8 institutions are from 4 different regions of the country of Kenya. So once we have the 8 institutions, the next part was dispersing the resources that they need. So far we've dispersed $350,000 to help support the redesign of curriculum across these 8 institutions. And I'm going to give an example of just 3 projects that some of these institutions are working on. The Jomo Kenyatta University of Technology, which is based in Nairobi, is working on a project on using robotics to teach responsible computing. So they're teaching them how to build robotics, but thinking about the ethical implications of how and when and the impact of building robots. The Dedan Kimathi University of Agriculture of Technology is looking at object-oriented programming, which is one subject that is taught in programming languages or programming in universities. And they're thinking of how do we teach students how to code, but also implement ethical principles when they learn how to code. And the last example I'll give is by the University of Embu, that are thinking about using critical and design thinking to help their students build AI projects. So what they're using is teaching their faculty how to teach through design thinking, and then using the knowledge of that faculty to then train the students to implement the same in AI projects. These are 3 examples out of the 8 institutions that we are currently working with. A year later, ever since we started with the outreach process, we've worked with 8 universities that have received funding as well as skill building to implement and redesign their curricula. And we are so far impacting at least 500 students who are taking on courses in this redesigned curricula. And we've just done our first community showcase just last month, where all the